All right, talk about a long-term in the making. Long-term project that I finally am starting to get around to. I've been talking about wanting to forge and make knives and learn how to forge and stuff like that for a little while on the channel, probably like a little over a month. I've been talking about it and kind of getting into it. Got like a handful of just like basic learner blacksmithing tools, and I'll go over all that stuff in a little bit too. And I wanted to share it on the channel, and I want to see if it's kind of like more of a successful thing, or if this is just something I'm going to kind of do as a hobby in the meantime. I hope you guys give it a chance. Hopefully you guys watch over. There's still a lot I have left to learn. So throughout the video, I would suggest watching the whole video before commenting on any suggestions. There's a lot of YouTubers I do watch. Everyone has recommended, like Alex Steele and all them. I do watch those guys. That's kind of how I learned. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for me today because we're going to do stuff that I haven't done yet. I haven't quenched. I haven't really sharpened a knife yet. I have made a handful of like small, like just kind of getting an idea of how forging works and whatnot. The actual process of hitting something with a hammer until it becomes a material. This is my anvil. It's a 66 pounds, 70 pounds, something like that anvil. This is kind of the material that I want to work with today. I got some rebar. This was suggested by a lot of people to learn. It's kind of a mystery metal. I've heard online that sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really bad. It's good for beginners to learn on and stuff like that. So I've got a couple pieces here I'm gonna dig with. This is my forge. It's a single burner propane. I think this thing gets around 2400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when it's time to quench, this is what I'm gonna be using. Just an empty can filled with some canola oil. And this is kind of what I have in the way of the tools I'm gonna be using. Just a pair of blacksmith pliers, channel locks and stuff like that. Some 3 or 4 pound hammers, or my belt sander. I've got grit all the way from like 80 all the way up to 1,000 grit for this thing. Before we get started, I do want to talk about this. You know, I haven't played any browser strategy games in years. As a matter of fact, I don't even really know what's on the market anymore, to be honest with you. I haven't played since the old school like Tribe Wars or like the old Command and Conquer games, you know? Or like those old school 2000s games, you know? Or like the orcs and the medieval crap. But I did do a little research and I found this. A browser strategy game called Throne Kingdom at War. I was pretty drawn in by the gameplay right away. I mean, it's a little risky to stylize this game in an old-fashioned way, but it worked out perfectly. Historic castles, endless battles, fighting over resources, robbing caravans, but in a modern interpretation with cool graphics and modern social features. Either way, if you're tired of going through the same old strategy game over and over again, you need to check this game out. Join Throne using my link below and you'll get hooked up with a special bonus. A whole day of VIP status for free. Believe me, it's highly worth your time. Just check it out. Now we gotta make some knives. So I've got the premise of the knife, pretty basic actually. It ended up being a lot longer than I thought it was gonna be. I keep forgetting how the property of metal when it stretches when you beat it. But I've got a pretty smooth design here, no major chunks or hammer hits. That was kind of my main goal with the smaller hammer. I wanted to kind of like make it more of a neutral. So like I wanted to make it as flat as I possibly could without having to use the sander, which we're about to start doing now. But I have the basic premise of the knife. The blade will start somewhere around here, curve up, and then lean into that, and then hopefully we can sharpen that. Pretty light actually, very surprisingly light. I have no idea if this is gonna harden, but basically I wanna flatten this out, take most of the scuffing off of both sides, and then begin the edge. I'll begin the edge, but I won't finish it. I'll save that for after I cure the metal. I'll do what's called normalizing it, where I heat it up to about 14 to 1500 degrees. Make sure it's not magnetic. Do that about 2 or 3 times. That relieves all the stress of, you know, because you're hitting it and bending it, and there's stress built up in the metal. So you do that 3 or 4 times. From what I gathered anyway, heat it back up, and then you'll dunk it in your curing or your quenching liquid, which I'm going to use the canola oil. Get the premise of the blade, make sure all the surfaces are nice and smooth. I'll start out with 80 grit, and then I will quench it and then finish up sharpening it. I have been grinding metal for years without a respirator. I finally cracked down and bought one. You don't want to do this without a respirator. There's tons of tiny pieces of metal and whatnot. So I'm gonna make sure I use a respirator when it comes to grinding. Something I should have been doing a long time ago. All right, a lot of good progress here. Got off most of the chunks and whatnot. These right here are pretty deep, and they'll come off once I start sharpening and creating my bevel for the blade. So what I'm gonna do now is just switch to a higher grit paper, probably like a 400, smooth everything out, then I'm gonna quench it, and then I'm gonna sharpen it. So I've got my canola oil right here. I also have a thermometer and a blowtorch with me. What I'm gonna do is basically kind of warm up the canola oil to about 150 degrees. It's because but you want to do this because warm oil cools quicker than cold oil or something like that. I don't know. I believe this is the correct way to check, but so since the knife is hardened and the handle is not, This file should be able to tell me via sound. So, hear it biting. Sounds like it's biting and taking material out. Yeah. See what it sounds like it's just kind of gliding off. Supposedly that means it's hardened, which is good because it doesn't look like there's any warps. There certainly wasn't any chips, but this means now, I guess, that this can get a really good edge on it, which I'm gonna try to do. File's not touching it. So, time to sharpen. The two tests I always see people do online is one, they can shave some hair. You guys have already seen that it can, but it's all my leg hairs. So what I think I'm gonna do is, obviously this one's not gonna be for sale or anything like that. I certainly wouldn't want to sell this for two reasons. One, that I don't think it's I would consider quality for a knife to be sold. I wouldn't consider this a sellable knife as much as just me learning how to make a full-blown knife. You know, this is kind of like an experiment. Secondly, I think my next project will be this 25mm wrench here. I think that if I keep the pommel right about there, cut the head of this off, I can kind of make like a tiny little cleaver out of this. And I think that'd be really cool. I certainly won't be the first person to forge something out of a wrench, but it's kind of one of my favorite things to do. So if it's well received with you guys, what I'll do is I will probably make a secondary channel where I just make knives and bottle openers and other cool things where I forge them out of different things. Specifically, I want to start doing them out of motorcycle parts. I have a bunch of motorcycle parts at my shop that I can use, like camshafts and connecting rods, stuff like that. I'll probably create like an Etsy store or something like that. Learn how to etch and stuff like that. You guys will get to follow me along with that. So if you like it, you know, leave a comment saying that you like it, but it's really cool to be able to turn something like this into something like that. Like that is super cool to me. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you guys like it because I plan on keeping doing it. So see you guys in the next video.